Hello, hello. Welcome to another live. Here we are every Monday, and this is your chance to ask any questions about NLP, about anxiety, emotions, embodiment, numerology, all of that. Here you have this opportunity to get some free coaching. If there's some challenges that you've been going through, and because not everyone can afford to have one-on-one sessions, so I create this space every week, so you have this chance to ask all the questions and pick up some useful tips and tools that perhaps you can apply to your life. And yeah, because let's face it, like there's a lot going on at the moment globally, but also personally. A lot of people are going through a lot of things. So here's the opportunity to get some free coaching. And today I wanted to talk about something that a common cause of anxiety that's often overlooked. There are many, many different things that can contribute to anxiety and anxious feelings that people might be feeling. And I've talked about quite a lot in these lives, and you can some of the common ones that can, there's many things that can help, but there's some of the common causes is being disconnected from the body, unexpressed emotions, not caring for our physical needs, feeling some kind of disconnect on some level, like socially as well, or spiritually. There are many, many different things that can bring up anxiety for people. And when people go through a lot of changes as well, especially with the 6 basic human needs, we have certainty and uncertainty. Those are 2 needs there. So that perceived sense of certainty, that safety, that security. And then that uncertainty, that variety, like not having everything the same all the time. And these are 2 really good, they're 2 like human basic needs, and a lot of needs that people want and need, but like everyone has their own personal balance of how much they want of each of those. And when there is one that is a little bit more than what we perhaps want, especially in terms of the variety, the uncertainty, if there's a lot of that is more than what we want, then sometimes that's when anxiety can come up for people. It's like, like too much change or too many things happening in your life. And that's exactly when I experienced anxiety many years ago. That was a change of country, change of language, change of relationship, change of career, change of like home to live in, change of everything on all levels. And that brought up a lot of things. So there's plenty more on the podcast if you want to hear more about that. But one common thing that people often overlook that can cause anxiety, that can bring up anxious feelings, is something very important, very, very important. And this is something that we all have, though most of the time we overlook it. Like generally speaking, we tend to overlook it or not really put much importance on it, because in society, like so much is focused on the intellect, on the results, on the doing, on the achieving, on the getting somewhere, and much less emphasis and value has been placed on the being and on that intuitive knowing. And what I want to talk about today is the intuition and how important this is. And when we overlook the intuition, when we bypass that, when we ignore it, that can bring up anxiety for some people. So this is something that not many people talk about. And I just wanted to touch upon this in today's class, because this is so important. This is so important. Like, I mean, not only is anxiety so common in many, many people, and I've supported so many people over the years that they've come to me and they've just been like, oh yeah, I feel all these feelings like social anxiety and this and that and the other, anxiety about their body or food or many different aspects, and yeah, relationships, career, all of that. It's very common anxiety, and I feel that whilst all those other areas that I briefly touched upon before talked about, and also like the thoughts and the beliefs and all of that, the intuition is not really that, it's not talked about in terms of the relationship with anxiety. And when we have some kind of intuitive knowing, I'm pretty sure like every single human being at some point has felt this, and like some kind of sense of, oh, that doesn't quite feel right, or you feel a bit of an uneasiness, and then something happens and you're like, oh yeah, I knew, or like of course, like I had a feeling something was going to happen, or you have a intuitive sense that something is right for you. Like you feel some sense of expansion when you go to a place or you meet a person or you're doing a particular activity, like it feels different. Intuition is the language of the soul. So it's the soul that's communicating to us and gives us these little gentle nudges, and it can come in many different ways. Sometimes people, like most of the time, it's a feeling, a sensation, like a tightening in the abdomen, like gut feeling. We have that phrase, gut feeling. It can feel like that, or an expansion in the chest. Though for some people, it could be like hearing a particular phrase or word or something within the mind. For some people, it can be just like a deep knowing. You just know something and you have no idea how you know that, but you just know that something is either good for you or not. And you just know without having any facts or details, but you just have this knowing. And there are many other ways, but those are some of the common ways. And when we go through life and we ignore these intuitive messages and we pay attention to, like we're placing more attention and value on the logic and what the mind is saying, and the mind is there with all the chatter going like, yeah, I should do this, I should do that, I need to focus on this, I need to get this done, that done, like what results, what goals, blah blah blah, all of that. Like when the mind is there with all of the chatter, and this is what the mind loves to do. It loves to focus on many different things, and especially nowadays, thanks to social media and how social media platforms are constructed, it really has been like an overstimulation of the mind. And the mind has now, like human beings are, I feel personally, they're literally being rewired. Like the human mind is being rewired thanks to social media. If we use it regularly, that the attention span has become a lot shorter. Like people's attention spans, they're finding it difficult to concentrate on things. Sometimes this can present a little bit like ADHD symptoms, though obviously some people do have specific ADHD symptoms that have been identified by a professional. But sometimes there can be this like sense of like, yeah, just the mind wants lots and lots of activity and it's working on lots and lots of things and wanting to focus on all the doing and the achieving. And when there's so much focus placed on that and we're not listening to the body, we're not coming down into the body. This is one of the keys to listening to the intuition, is being embodied, connecting with the body. And if we're disconnected to the body, like if we're just living up here, up in the head, then we're missing on so much information. We're missing out on what our senses are telling us. We're missing out on all of that. When we come back down into the body, when we connect with the breath, when we're aware of like, oh, how is my breath? Like what's happening here? Or like when I move into a certain situation, or when I talk to a particular person, like what's happening? Like how's my body communicating? And that deeper sense within, like there's the information from the body, but there's this deeper sense within, this like intuitive sense. It's hard to describe, but I'm pretty sure that most people at some point have walked into a room and sensed like, oh, has there just been an argument, or it feels a bit tense in here, or you just know something's happened or something's going to happen. You just get a feeling. So yeah, being embodied is a really important key. And when we know something to be true, yet we don't act on it, and we're in conflict with the intuition, when we're like, there's this intuition and logic conflict going on, and the mind is trying to talk you out of it, or the mind is trying to say, oh no, that's not true, I just need to, like, for example, in a relationship, if someone is experiencing some anxiety in a relationship and they have a sense that things are not quite right and they know that something needs to change, either like change within the relationship, have a conversation with the other partner, or potentially leave and start a new chapter. If there's this like internal knowing that something there is not quite right, yet the logical mind is trying to override that, or the ego is holding on to the comfort and the safety, and it's like, oh, I don't want to create any change, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to say anything, or what if I don't find anyone else, blah blah blah, like all the fears of the mind and the ego. If there's that conflict there, then that's when anxiety can come up. So anxiety can come up in those situations. And essentially anxiety is this messenger. I say this all the time, like those people that are following me on Instagram, like I'm posting this all the time. Anxiety is a messenger. Anxiety is always communicating something. One of the things that it communicates is about the intuition, overlooking the intuition and not listening to the intuition, not acting on the intuition. That's one of the keys. There's often like we're aware of it, it's there, that feeling in the background, or that knowing in the background. It's like, oh yeah, I need to have that conversation or do that thing or make that change. But then there's that fear or just wanting to shove it under the carpet because it potentially means that we might have to face some discomfort in the beginning. Yeah, so this is something that's very common. It's very common that we tend to, place more focus on what the mind is saying rather than what that deeper, heartfelt, soulful, full body message is coming through. So that the soul is always communicating through the body, through the senses, through that intuition, and we can listen to it, we can pay attention to it, or we can ignore it. And sometimes, like, one of the easiest ways is I said about coming embodied, like getting into the body. And one of the easy ways is just to start noticing, okay, like, do things feel expansive or do things feel contracted? Like, is my body tensing up and contracting, or is my body expanding? Like, do I feel relaxed? And just noticing how we feel in different situations with different people, like what comes up. And it can be ever so subtle in the beginning. That's why it's really important just to be present, to come back to the present moment, come back to the body, because then we can really notice it. Otherwise, we're thinking about the future or in the past, or busying ourselves with scrolling or listening to music or whatever, like a lot of noise and a lot of distractions, and then we're missing the information. So coming back to the present moment, back to the body, listening to the intuition, that can be one of the things that reduces anxiety. That can be one of the things that reduces any anxiousness. And this is the thing with human beings, we love to, obviously I'm speaking generally, I can't speak for every single person, but generally speaking, we love to move away from pain and discomfort and want to hold on to things that feel comfortable, even if it might not be what actually we want or might not be what is good for us. So just staying in this habit, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a job, whether that's a particular habit that we do, like whether that's a habit with food or alcohol or some kind of vice that gives us a sense of comfort, or mobile phones. This is a very, very common one for lots of people is the mobile phone, and just like using the phone as a way of distracting ourselves, or using the phone to kind of busy ourselves, so then we don't actually have to listen to the intuition or that wisdom from the body. Because deep down, what I've noticed is that most people, like sometimes this has happened quite a lot. I've seen this in clients. I've also experienced it myself. I've seen it in loved ones as well, that deep down, virtually like all of us, when we truly listen, we know what's right for us. We know what we need. We know. It's just sometimes we pretend not to know, out of fear of making a change and holding on to comfort, just wanting to be in that comfortable, familiar surroundings and holding on to that, because sometimes there are beliefs that we have placed on change. Change is fill in the blank. Notice what comes up when you say that, because sometimes for some people they will have a very positive outlook on change. It's like change is wonderful, change is positive, change is empowering, change is like whatever the beliefs are. And for some people there may be beliefs that are not so helpful. Change is bad, change is scary, change is fill in the blank. So it's really interesting to notice, like, what do we believe about change? What do we believe about uncertainty in life? What beliefs do we have there? Like, are we, according to those beliefs, we will then live our life according to that. So then we might limit ourselves in order not to experience change if there is some underlying belief there that change is bad, for example. So I would love to hear from you, like those of you watching, like if there are any specific beliefs that you notice coming up, or like anything about change, uncertainty, or even about the intuition, if there are any questions about that intuition and anxiety, because it's a practice. This is the thing. It's often like our minds have been trained to really want to get the quick fix and everything now. Back in the day, like when I was a kid, I didn't have a mobile phone. Like to arrange to meet up with friends, we would phone up the house phone like a week before, and then you would arrange it, and then you would, and sometimes they might be out, so then you would be patient, and then you will call back later. And it was a very different world back then. And now everything's instant. It's like, oh, they haven't messaged back in like 5 minutes, like what's happened, or half an hour, or depending on the person. And yeah, like wanting this instant results, instant information, instant, like everything now. It's almost like we've lost the skill of patience, and we've lost the skill of really wanting to, yeah, the skill of being present, skill of patience. And of course, I'm generally speaking here, though it's just interesting to notice like what's there, and like what yeah, like how are we living our life, and how have we been influenced according to technology and modern day life. And is there anything that we need to change? Is there anything that we see that could be beneficial of changing, and really coming back to the present moment, the breath, the body, and the intuition? All of that can reduce anxiety. So looking at the questions, my intuition is telling me I need a holiday, but I don't get them in 7 weeks, every 3 weeks. Yeah. Sometimes it's like the body needs a rest. So how can you bring in some of that holiday feeling already? Because this is the thing, like often we are placing something out in the future, like I will be happy when, I will be this when, and it might be something that we need, And most people do on this planet. Like most people are very stressed and overworked, and we're like in this constant routine of get up and go to work and go to sleep and get up and go to work. Most people need a holiday. We should have a worldwide holiday. But if that's something that we need and we're constantly seeing it as something far out into the future, then we're missing the gift in the present moment of how we can feel that now. So when you're on holiday, what are the things that make it a holiday? What are the things that make it relaxing for you? I imagine that that's what you might be looking for in a holiday. Though for some people they want adventure. It depends on the individual. Like, what do you want in a holiday? Like, what makes it a holiday for you? And how can you bring in little bits of that into your daily life? So it could even just like 1% more. Like 1% more, or like little pauses. This is what I do when I work with mothers, because of course mothers are some of the busiest people on this planet, and they have a million things to think about, and they're caring for this baby, this child, and they don't have much time for themselves. So working with mothers, often what I bring up is about the mini retreats within the day. So rather than like, oh, go to a retreat or go to a spa, it's like, how can I bring little mini retreats throughout the day? And this could even just be in the form of bringing more presence and awareness to the breath. So every time we pause, every time we take an inhale and exhale, that's a little mini retreat right there. That's a little holiday right there. It's a little moment to reset right there. And there's the opportunity in many ways, in many different ways. This is the thing, the mind often limits and says, oh, it needs to be like this. Though then bring the attention back to, okay, what's present, what's possible? And often there are more ways that, so like, what haven't I considered yet? Yeah, silence, but more than 48 hours per weekend. Yeah, sometimes we need more than what we're able to get, though the more we're able to bring in presence to what we have already, then the less we will be desperate for whatever it is we're looking for. So the more presence and awareness I can bring to the breath, the more stillness and calm I can bring into the moment. And then the less desperate I will feel for the need of all of that space and silence. Not to say that a holiday we don't need it anymore. Of course, like a holiday will be wonderful. There's just noticing, like, we can either make things easier or harder. So it's like, how can I make things easier whilst I'm waiting for that holiday to come up? How can I make it easier? So yeah, coming back to the breath, that's one way. Or just like little things. Like I recently went to, recently, it's probably a month now, for my birthday last month. I went to a spa with a friend, which was wonderful. And we had a wonderful evening, just like really like relaxing, enjoying all the ambience there, and like they had lots of candles and stone archways, and it was magical. It was so beautiful. And we were celebrating both of our birthdays because we both have birthdays either day, like of each other. And when I came home, I was like, oh, I would really like to go back, have another spa break. But then I was like, why don't I just make a spa at home? And there's like little ways that we can bring in what we're looking for into daily life. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just, in little ways, turn my bathroom into a spa. So of course I can't like bring in the jacuzzis and all of that. I'm not going to do that. But in little ways, it's like 1% more, 2% more, 3% more. So I have a nice candle holder. I have some nice oils. I've got a nice crystal. got some nice towels. Like, I just make it this spa-like feeling as I walk into the room. And that's very different compared to not doing anything and just wishing, oh, I wish I was there again. Oh, yeah, I want to be there again, and I'm not there, and missing the gifts in the present moment. So this is just like a very fun and creative way. I can get very creative. Like, oh, how can I bring that holiday feeling? Even if it is just like being playful, like turn your living room into a beach in a fun way. Get playful with your friends and family, if that's where you want to go on holiday. So yeah, so it's important to coming back to the main topic of like this, one of these common ways that, and overlooked ways of how anxiety can come up, is when we're ignoring the intuition, when we're ignoring those messages that we know deep down that we need to make a change or do something, yet we're ignoring that out of fear of hurting someone, out of fear of being uncomfortable, out of fear of whatever it is. Usually there's some kind of fear and like wanting to hold on to that comfort. Yet deep down there's something else that's desired, or deep down we know we're capable of more, or deep down we want to experience something different in our life. And it's totally possible. It's totally possible. Like most of the time, like we're aware of what the intuition is saying. It's just trusting it and acting on it. And this is the thing. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. I once went to Menorca years ago, and I just had this intuitive feeling that I needed to go to this particular part of the island. Like I saw the map of Menorca, and I just felt drawn to one particular part. I was like, oh, like that part there, I've never been, and it was really calling me. So I went there, and it just felt like a magnet. Like sometimes that's how my intuition works. Like it just feels like a magnet, and I'm just drawn to something. And I was drawn to that particular part of the island, and I went there, and then I met someone there that then taught me some very important lessons in my life. And you can hear more about that in the podcast. In the first couple of episodes, I explain more about that whole experience. And this is the thing. It's like if I ignored my intuition, if I just stayed within the comfort zone, if I just stayed where I was, then I would have missed on all of the richness, on all of the gifts of that whole experience of going to that new place, meeting that person, and learning all of the lessons that I learnt. So yeah, like when we try to fight the intuition, when we try to ignore it, when we want to just do what the logical mind says, then that's when anxiety sometimes can come up, because we're ignoring that massive part of us, the soul, like what the soul wants. This is why I love numerology, because numerology can really bring clarity on what the soul is communicating, and our direction and purpose in this lifetime, and our skills, like what we've come here to share with the world. And this is what I do with clients, like when I go through their full numerology birth charts, and we get really clear. It's like we create this, like thanks to the numbers, we can see this whole blueprint and see like what their soul wants to learn, what direction their soul wants to go in, what their deepest desire is, how they express themselves, like how other people perceive themselves, any karmic lessons, any balancing out from past lives, any like there's so much information, like the different phases and cycles, and the gifts, the strengths and the challenges, like the weaknesses that we've come to improve. Like there's so many things in there in the birth chart. And understanding that part of the soul can be really, really useful because then we can have a much more clarity on like, okay, that's why. Well, oh yes, my intuition was right all along. It's almost like we feel, we gain some validation there. We start learning to trust ourselves and what we're feeling, what we're sensing, what we're drawn to through knowing the birth chart. And then, so that's with the numerology. And then sometimes people like want to have that alongside the NLP coaching as well with embodiment, and to really work with this holistic full picture to reduce anxiety and just really get clear on like what is their soul saying, what's their mind saying, like what's going on with the unconscious mind, and what is their body saying. Like with all those three aspects together, like that's a really powerful combination. That's really powerful. And it's not just like, oh, change a few beliefs and then reduce anxiety, or, oh, just do a few stretches, reduce anxiety. There's that full picture encompassing all areas of us, of ourselves, and all parts of ourselves as human beings, not just the human aspect, but the being as well, the human being, everything all together. So that's what I do in the one-on-one sessions. There's more information in the description if you want information about that. So yes, coming up, those of you who are in the Barcelona area, well, there's many different events online as well. So like online, these continue every single week. And so next Monday at 7 Central European time, I'll be back here. So if you've got any specific topic requests, let me know, pop them in the chat. And those of you in the Barcelona area, this Saturday at 11:45, I have a talk about anxiety that's specifically designed for women. It's going to be at a women's health centre this Saturday that has an open doors event. And there's going to be many different speakers and many different topics. And there'll be different talks and things in Spanish, French, and English. I'm offering a talk in English at 11:45 this Saturday. So once this live is finished, I will put the link in the description. And it's going to be a really wonderful event where there's talks on everything. It's all for women, based on all the challenges and things that women go through, and especially to do with the cycles. So there's going to be experts talking about fertility, experts talking about menopause, there's going to be an integrative gynecologist coming as well. And I will be there talking at 11:45 about anxiety and negative self-talk and how that shows up in women and what can help women with that. So that will be this Saturday, and that's completely free. So you can just turn up and join. And and then we have next week on the 4th, so the 4th of June, there will be an NLP meetup on the beach. And this will be a wonderful opportunity for those people who want to come to Villanova y Geltrú and enjoy the beach, or those who are in the area and want to learn some NLP and some useful tools and techniques. And I'll be focusing more on the body. So it'll be like embodied NLP, like really coming back to the body and learning about breath, body posture, and how that influences our mindset. So that will be next week. That's on a donation basis, so just pay what you want. And then, so I'm just looking at my diary here. And then the following week, on the 20th of June, I have this really special women's circle, this women's gathering, which is called Wild Woman Wisdom. And we're going to be diving into the topic all about anger and that wildness within every woman. And sometimes this can be suppressed, sometimes this can be overlooked or judged or shamed. Sometimes, like, especially when there's that good girl personality or label that we adopt in society, like not wanting to rock the boat or not say anything or people pleasing. And we're going to be exploring like what's underneath that and that wild woman wisdom, and just really get this like wonderful, like have this wonderful nourishing evening in company of women and really understand the gifts the gifts of anger, because there can be gifts. This is the thing, it's not something bad that often gets portrayed. It's an emotion, it's a very strong emotion. And when used constructively, it can be very healing and powerful. So we'll be exploring that. And that one is €18 for that evening, because that includes all the drinks and snacks. And there'll be a NLP and hypnosis embodiment practices there as well. So there's a very wonderful, nourishing evening. If you want to join a couple of those events, then it actually works out cheaper. So just feel free to message me on WhatsApp if you want more information at +34 6226 986 73. So those are the events coming up. There's many more, but those are some of the ones coming up. And yeah, if there's no more questions, just let me know. Like if there's any more questions, pop them in the chat. I am going to be sending out a newsletter to those who are on my newsletter list soon. Usually I send it out every month, and this month there's been so much going on, and I'm going to explain a little bit more in the newsletter, because the May is almost over and I haven't sent the May newsletter out yet, and it will come out very soon. And I will explain more to those of you who have signed up. You can find the link in the description, and I'll share a little bit more about what I've been doing behind the scenes, all the many things that I've been learning and putting into practice, and what's been coming up in my life. So I'll be sharing that. So make sure you're signed up if you want to hear about that. And I'm also going to add a little extra to the newsletters, because there's so many different things I'm learning, and I think I will start sharing some of the music that I'm listening to and the books that I'm reading. So if you're curious to know what books I read, then that will be in the newsletter. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining. If there are no questions, then I will end today's call. I'll be back again next week at 7 Central European Time. Wishing you a wonderful, wonderful week, whatever you're doing. And I look forward to seeing some of you at these events coming up. And if you're not in the area, then I'll see you online at some time at these calls. And yes, and if you have any questions once this call's finished, just send me a message. I love hearing from you and hearing your questions as well. So wishing you a wonderful week.